Hey friends, welcome back to Homestead on a Prayer. In case you're new here, my name's Jennifer, and we've got this beautiful bowl of delicious cucumbers that we've harvested from the garden. Now this isn't quite enough to do a full canning round of pickles, but this is the perfect amount to make some refrigerator pickles. Now refrigerator pickles are a great option for a couple reasons. One is if, like me, you have a little bit of produce coming in right now, but not quite enough to make it worth running your canner to make a whole batch of canned pickles. Refrigerator pickles, you can just make 1 or 2 jars and just keep it in your fridge. They'll last for a little while in your fridge. And then you don't have to worry about having enough to fill up your canner. This is a great option for the beginning of the season when your produce first starts trickling in, or for the end of the season when your produce is just, you've got a few little stragglers left. It's also a great option if you just have a smaller garden. You may not have enough produce to make a full batch of pickles to can. Another benefit of these refrigerator pickles is that they stay super crispy. I'm sure every one of us who has canned pickles before has had the experience of picking your cucumbers, preparing the pickles, canning them, only to eat them 6 months later and they're kind of mushy. They may have great flavor, but the texture isn't always the best. That's because they're cooked, they're processed. It's just hard to keep cucumbers crispy when you're canning them and processing them. So refrigerator pickles are a great way to keep your pickles crispy. Now, of course, they're not going to last all year the way your canned pickles will, but these are still a great option. Now, I have a friend who makes the best refrigerator pickles in the world. She's kind of famous in our friendship circle for making the best pickles, and every year she makes a bunch and she gives them out to everybody. So I asked her for her recipe and she shared the website she got the recipe from with me. So today we're going to use the same recipe that my friend uses to make the best refrigerator pickles. So let's head on into my kitchen. We're going to bring these cucumbers with us. I'll show you how we prepare them and how we make a delicious brine to pickle these. So we're here in my kitchen. To make these refrigerator pickles, this is what you're going to need. First of all, you're going to need cucumbers. These are silver slicer cucumbers. These are officially a slicing variety, but they work as pickling cucumbers too. So that's what I have today. That's what I'm going to be using. You're going to need white vinegar. You're going to need sugar, salt, black peppercorns. You're going to need mustard seed. You're going to need garlic. And you're also going to need dill. Now my garden dill did not do well this year and it's already completely dead. So we've got grocery store dill. You're also going to need a jar to put them in. I have a canning jar here. Since this is not actually going to be canned, you don't need a canning jar. You can use any kind of jar. You could reuse an old pickle jar if you want to. But this is what I have in hand, so we're going to use this. Now one thing to note is that I am going to be doubling the recipe because the recipe is for a pint jar. I'm going to be making a quart jar instead. So I'm going to be doubling all the ingredients in this recipe. Also in the video description, I'm going to put the link to the website with this recipe so you don't have to worry about writing everything down. You can just enjoy making pickles with me. The first thing we're going to do is in this pan, we're going to prepare a brine. So we are going to need 1 cup of water and 1 cup of white vinegar to go into this pan here. Okay, so here's our cup of water. Now we've got to get a cup of vinegar as well. So let's go ahead and add our vinegar to the water in this pan here. Now that we've got our liquid in here, I'm going to go ahead and put this on medium heat to start heating up while we add the rest of our ingredients. Now to our brine, we're going to add 3 cloves of garlic. The recipe calls for 2. Since we're doubling it, it would be 4, but some of these garlic cloves are really huge, so I think 3 is going to be good. I'm just going to go ahead and smash these with a knife to release the garlic juices, and then we're going to add them to our brine. And we're just going to peel the paper off and throw these right into our brine. Now to our brine, we're also going to need 1 tablespoon of kosher salt. You're going to need half a teaspoon of sugar. A teaspoon of whole mustard seeds. And half a teaspoon of whole black peppercorns. Now you're just going to bring this up to a boil and you're going to stir it until all of your salt and sugar are dissolved. And that will allow the garlic and the pepper and the mustard, all of those flavors to infuse into this broth and make it extra delicious. Okay, so our broth is boiled, everything's incorporated. We're going to take that off the heat and let it come to room temperature. And while it's coming to room temperature, we're going to prepare the rest of our ingredients. So we're just going to take these cucumbers here. We're going to cut a very thin slice off each end. And then you can do these pickles either in spears or in slices. We're going to do ours in spears. So I'm just going to cut them in quarters lengthwise. And then we're just going to pack these into our jar. Now I like to do the quart jar partly because it allows you to use slightly longer spears. You can see these spears in here would be a little bit tall for a pint jar, so rather than having to waste some of it or make it and cut it in half and make short spears, I decided to just go ahead and use a quart jar. We're going to set aside all these cucumber ends for our chickens. They will be very happy to get these. Now as we go, we're going to tuck a couple sprigs of dill kind of nestled in with our cucumbers. That's going to give our pickles that really delicious dill flavor. In my opinion, dill pickles are, in my opinion, the only pickles worth having. Many people disagree, but I think dill pickles are by far the best. Okay, so our brine has cooled down to room temperature now. You definitely want to let it cool down to room temperature before adding it to your cucumbers because you want to keep your cucumbers as crispy as possible, and keeping the temperature cool is the best way to make that happen. So we have our jar of cucumbers and dill here. We're going to carefully add the brine. We're going to make sure that we include all of the solid parts of this brine. We want all the garlic and the peppercorns and the mustard that's in there. We want to make sure that we get all of that in our jar. Now, if this is not enough brine, we can top it off with a little bit of water and vinegar mixed if it doesn't cover our cucumbers completely. And if it's too much, we don't need to use it all. We just want to make sure that we get all the solid parts in there. So let's add this into our jar. So I just put the brine into this measuring cup here just to make it easier to pour into our jar. Now it looks like we're going to use all of it. Let me just scrape out all of that delicious, flavorful goodness. So here is our delicious jar of refrigerator pickles. These are going to be so good. We're going to put them in the refrigerator. You want to let them sit for at least a day before eating them. Honestly, I think a few days is better, maybe even up to a week. That way they'll really absorb the flavor of the brine and really get pickled. That's the difference between eating a cucumber and eating a pickle. So we're going to let these sit in our refrigerator and absorb all of this deliciousness. Now, because these aren't canned, they're not shelf stable, you do need to keep them in your refrigerator. Because this brine's about 50% vinegar, this should preserve our pickles pretty well in the refrigerator. I would guess that they would probably be good for a couple months in your refrigerator. Just use your judgment. If you see any kind of mold or smell an off flavor or anything tastes bad, don't eat that. But this should keep them good for quite a while. Honestly, we always go through these so fast that we don't have to worry about them going bad. So I imagine the same will probably be true of you, but we're not going to make like 20 jars of this at once and keep it in our fridge. We just kind of make them gradually as we get cucumbers. So we're going to go ahead and put these in our fridge, and then we're going to enjoy these in a few days. So quick pickling or refrigerator pickling is a great option, as I said, when you only have a few cucumbers, but you can do this same recipe technique with other vegetables too. Now you may want to change up your brine a little bit depending on what kind of vegetables you have, But every year I make quick jalapeno pickles too. I'll leave out the dill in that case, and I might make the brine slightly different, but it's the same basic principle. And then we have refrigerator jalapeno pickles, and those will last us for a couple months after harvest season. So I hope that you're encouraged to try pickling your harvest. It's really easy. It's really easy even if you're canning, and if you're making refrigerator pickles, it's even easier. So I hope you guys are having a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. See you next time.